Hello everybody, my name is Shepherd's Eagle. Thank you for tuning in. In this video I'm gonna talk about what, in my opinion, and after a theory that I put together, makes a good League of Legends pro player. Like a reliable, good player that you can count on. I have several points I want to go through, even though I'm gonna keep this video as short as possible, because it's like not a topic that I want to dive into too deep at the moment, because I need to do a lot more research myself on that topic. But I got some stuff that I figured is pretty important to notice, and I want to share with you the things that I basically found out for myself, and also of course from others, from other coaches. So let's get started. Basically, a good player, that's why I have opened these stats here from my account. A good player is of course valued by his stats, like what win rate does he have, like how, if you go a little bit deeper into how do these stats apply on a player, like where is he in his region, is he on the top, is he like always a little bit under the average, below average, or above average basically. And you can see the stats of course in every player they are a little bit different of course, but this is not the main thing, because good stats basically don't tell anybody how you are gonna perform under a lot of pressure. And this is the most important part about pro play. It's not that in scrims that you shine and you do carry your team alone to victory. Like it's not this part of being a pro player that is extremely important. It's really the part where you have to perform when everything comes together, basically under a lot of pressure, when you have opponents against you that really figured your playstyle and you and your team out before they went into the tournament, like you did, or your team basically. So then comes another thing in, and this is something where I found an article or a website today which I like pretty much, and it's pretty interesting to see. I'm gonna switch over. It's this one here, basically, because this is from the psychology of winning. Basically, it's not too much information here, but it's also about Team Astralis, the CS:GO team. But the psychology of winning is really about the mental edge. That's the key thing here. And I made a video about that earlier already, about like the mental edge theory that I put together myself, especially for the League of Legends pro teams. But I want to dive onto a different point here. Let me get that straight. Like this bracket here, this is important too, and I'm gonna talk like 2 or 3 things about this at the end of the video. But first, let's get to some ugly drawing that I made. The thing with this drawing here is basically what you can imagine is the emotional fortitude is a big part of how a player performs under pressure, and this is what I want to talk about mainly in this video. Like, the mental edge is a really strong win condition for a player individually and a team, of course, as a whole in a tournament. If the players themselves don't have the emotional fortitude, they don't get the mental edge. This is what you can see in this drawing here. Like, you can imagine it like if a player goes into a tournament and he doesn't really get this mental edge, which I'm gonna explain a little bit more now. He cuts off his ability to do the other 3 things here, like the processable information, mechanical, and macro skills. Why? That's something I'm gonna tell you now. It took me a while to figure that out myself, because I was always watching players, like especially from teams I observe a lot in EU. Good examples would be Burpo. He is a really interesting player concerning mental edge. I think mental edge is one of his biggest struggles throughout the years, like since he joined Fnatic. Burpo is a good example. Also, Caps is a good example. I think he figured that out, I guess, a little bit better last year, or this year even, at Worlds, to get his mental edge in place. and other players that that you can think of. I would have to look it up now, basically. But what you have to mainly focus on is like the emotional fortitude as a whole. Like this thing here as a whole is how the player is basically feeling. You can put it like that, and this is like when he's at home at the gaming house scrimming and practicing with the team, and this is his normal emotional fortitude, and it's good for the player. And the emotional fortitude, on the other hand, goes straight to the processable information. What processable information means is basically the amount of information a player is able to put together in his head in a very short period of time, and to evaluate as many things that are relevant, and of course evaluate which of them are relevant for a play, for a move on the map, for a macro decision in the team, anything you can imagine. Basically, the more processable information a player has, like he can actually work with in the game, the more he builds himself the option to get a pretty high chance of doing the right decision, basically. So mechanical skills, of course, I don't have to explain this. This is like the skills on a micro level, and the macro skills, you should know that too if you watch League of Legends for a bit now. So basically I'm not going to explain those two, but these four here, they all go together, and especially in pro play we see this a lot. Like when the players go on stage or into a tournament, the emotional fortitude gets a crack, basically, because the players are like, oh, okay, I'm out of my comfort zone. Definitely, like, who is not? If you go into a tournament, anybody who's just like, this is normal, like, yeah, of course, would be strange, actually. So basically, the emotional fortitude cracks a little bit, I would say, here, and the player has to deal with that. Like, it's the same for basically every player. Even a faker has this crack in the emotional fortitude when he goes into a tournament. You can see this when you observe a little bit the history of faker and being in international tournaments or even in his regional tournaments. Like, of course, he is very, very professional, and he knows like how it goes on stage and in tournaments. But you can see that he's under pressure too. Like, he's not the most relaxed person there. So the mental edge is the thing you build to basically withstand that pressure when you go into the tournament. So you can basically, if you're really good at building your mental edge and keeping it up, you can basically remove that crack again, and you can take the full emotional fortitude back into the tournament, and then it all goes to the other side of the bracket, to the processable information. And mechanical and macro skills are hardly dependent on how much information you can process as a pro player. Like, basically, you can imagine this here is out if this is not there. You can put it like this, you know, like where the cut is, like this is all going together. If you have super high macro skills, but you are not able to process all of the information you get from the macro in your game, basically, it's not gonna be of any use for you or the player, basically. So mental edge, this is where it starts with the emotional fortitude, then the processable information, mechanical and macro skills follow afterwards. And this makes, if you want to put it in very, very simple words, a good pro player. Like, if a pro player has figured this scheme out for himself and he knows how to work around it, then he should be able to perform on a stable basis and be consistent, to always perform good under pressure. And there are a couple of players in League of Legends in pro play who got that figured out over the years. So basically, if you, for example, are looking for single player mistakes in pro play, and you analyze it, like a lot of analysts analysts do, and they tell the players, hey, look, in this case you could have done this and this and that better, and then this wouldn't have happened, or maybe we wouldn't have lost the game if you would have done a better macro decision there. It's really important to do that with the players, don't get me wrong there. But if an analyst, that's why a coach is so important for a pro play team. If an analyst is only focusing on these two things here, or maybe even the three things, like he's talking to the player and talking about mechanical differences maybe, or some flaws in the macro, or maybe he's talking to the player like, didn't you get the information right, or what happened there, and the player's like, yeah, well, I knew that there was all that stuff happening, and I had the information and was thinking about it, and like, and so on, and I knew how to maybe play the situation on a micro level. I knew what was happening macro, and the analyst is like, well, if you knew all that, why didn't you do it? And this is where the coach comes in, because then the player was not able to work with his mental edge. Like, he didn't really trust himself enough maybe in that situation, for example, or maybe he was a bit scared to maybe disappoint his teammates in any point if it goes wrong, or he didn't want to take the risk. This is what happens to a lot of pro players, like really a lot of pro players are this is this is where Burpo comes in again for me. A lot of pro players are really taking a lot of risks in scrims and not so important games, I would say, in international tournaments. And those are risks, basically, they could take if they had the mental edge, to if they would play the top tier teams, the important games, if you would call it like that. But it happens every time again that even the best of the best play a lot more reserved and are holding back when it comes to the really big games, like the one that decide where you go into the tournament. So, of course you can understand it, but this is something you don't have to do as a team. If you go into the most important game of a tournament and you cut your mental edge because it's too much pressure for you, and all the other three things here, like the processable information, mechanical and macro skills, they suffer from that, you didn't do the right thing going to this series of games, for example. So I really hope that you get the point that I'm making, because it's very important for every pro player and pro play team in League of Legends and any other esports too. It's not just League of Legends, but I'm doing this for League of Legends basically, because I want to become a team coach in League of Legends. When you get my point, I'm really happy. If you have any questions, post in the comments below. If you want to know a little bit more about the mental edge thing, I put a theory together, especially for Western and Eastern teams, sorry, in my last video. You can check that out if you want. It's a little bit longer, it's like half an hour, and it took me a while to get through everything, but whatever. I think we are done in this video. Thank you for watching. If you like what I do and if you want to support me, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. I really appreciate everything that I get from you guys. If it's feedback, I take it happily. And so have a nice evening or a great day whenever you're watching, and take care.